It was 2019, and I had been working with ride-sharing services like Uber and Lyft for about 3 years. I very much enjoyed the job because it offered me a lot of flexibility with my schedule, which was particularly important to me at that time. One summer night, just a week or so before the 4th of July, I was on one of my usual routes, driving 2 women home from the airport. They lived in a tiny town called Hopewell, about an hour from Nashville's airport. I'm generally a quiet person and don't typically engage in conversation with passengers unless they seem to want to talk. Usually I just have some soft music going. The women looked especially exhausted as it was nearing midnight, and they mentioned having had a long flight. Driving down a dark and quiet country road nearing their town, I saw the taillights of a truck glowing in a patch of trees just off to the side, and when I got closer, I noticed 2 men staring at us, both bigger men with their gazes seemingly very suspicious as we approached. One man quickly went to turn off the lights of their vehicle while the other stood and continued to stare. Thinking they might be having some trouble, I decided to pull over, roll down the window, and ask if they needed any assistance. They both looked at me, hunched over as if they were carefully observing me and the women in my vehicle. Without saying a word, they simply turned around and got into their truck. I figured it wasn't really my business, so I rolled up the window and continued the short remaining distance to the women's home. Upon arriving, I helped them carry their bags and luggage to the door and wished them a good night. They gave me a generous tip, which was nice considering the long drive. Heading back towards Nashville along the same route, I noticed the truck again, this time pulling out from the woods. I turned off my high beams as I saw them, and they suddenly sped off ahead of me, screeching their tires in haste. Just then, I noticed the truck's tailgate open as they hit the gas, and moments later, something fairly large fell out, landing on the road ahead. Just moments later, as I approached the object, the truck ahead slammed on its brakes and stopped in the middle of the road. Though I was tired and just wanted to get home, I couldn't help but look at what had fallen as I drove around it. As I got closer and strained my eyes to see, I was horrified to clearly see an arm protruding from a wrapped blanket. It appeared to be a woman's arm. I was in shock for a moment, my heart pounding rapidly. Could that really be a dead woman? I subconsciously wanted to reject the thought, but I stopped my car, put it in park, and quickly ran to check. Then, to my absolute horror, after uncovering her, I saw the cold, dead stare of a woman. I heard the doors of the truck ahead open and saw both men get out, the figures barely illuminated by the moon's glow. Still in absolute shock, I heard gunshots ringing moments later. One of the blasts hit my car. Terrified and filled with adrenaline, I raced back into my car and sped off in the opposite direction, putting as much distance between me and those men as possible. These people were insane. Eventually, the gunfire stopped, and the men got back into their truck. Though it was difficult to unlock my phone and dial 911 due to my increasing nervousness, I finally reached an operator and described the situation as the truck headed back to the body. Staying on the line with the operator, I drove away as quickly as I could, having to take a different route to avoid those men. Not a single second passed that entire night, and frankly the next couple days, that I didn't think about that occurrence. Thankfully, those 2 men were eventually found and arrested. The woman was found dead. I wondered what those men were doing that night. I mean, why were they parked near the woods? Did they try to dispose of her there and then change their plans because they felt they were seen? I never found out their intentions. A few years have passed, and I still can't get that nightmare out of my head. I've gone to therapy and tried to find peace with this memory, hoping it would fade. Yet, every time I'm driving down one of those dark country roads, The cold gaze of that woman's dead face haunts me.